In the distant land of Japan, war rages. The great clans do battle with one another for a mountain of golden riches, for the spirit stones which can command demons and bend the will of fate. There is only one, a warrior born of demonic power but with a human heart, who can save this land from an evil greater than it has ever known. Nioh 2 is an action game where you play as a wandering samurai who battles rampaging demons in feudal Japan. This game, like its predecessor, falls into the subgenre of Souls-like games, meaning that it has large looping levels filled with a number of enemies and traps, intense, fast-paced combat where split-second timing matters, huge, over-elaborate boss battles, and, most distinctively, punishing difficulty where, should you die or save, all of your progress in the level is reset. As in the previous game, your goal is to fight your way through a series of levels modeled after locations in ancient feudal Japan. The levels themselves are populated by patrolling guards, dangerous monsters, and deadly traps. Defeating these monsters in combat will reward you with money, armor and weapons, and valuable upgrade points. You can also explore the level looking for item drops or hidden treasure chests. Equipping new weapons and gear can improve your performance in combat, and upgrade points can be spent to improve your stats. But be careful. As mentioned before, dying in combat will cause all the enemies in an area to reset, and you'll have to drop your valuable upgrade points. Make it all the way to the end of a level, and you'll be able to challenge a boss, who are routinely some of the most difficult enemies in the game. Defeat them, and you'll unlock new levels on the world map, as well as the opportunity to purchase new arms and armor to further improve your character. Now, one of the things that sets Nioh apart from its contemporaries is its combat system. For starters, each weapon can be used in one of 3 different stances: low, mid, and high. And depending upon the stance, the attack pattern of the weapon will change. What's more, you can swap stances even during combat with the press of a button, meaning that you have the tactical flexibility of changing your entire moveset while fighting an enemy. On top of that, the game has an active stamina system, where pressing the focus button and even changing stances during combat will allow you to recover stamina you have spent on attacks. This system, once mastered, allows you to fight more fluidly and more efficiently against challenging opponents. However, while the core of the combat is much the same as it was before, Nioh 2 adds some important additions. For instance, there's now much more gear to choose from. New armor, new upgrades, new ninja items, and even a couple new weapon categories as well. But more notable is that the spirit system has been completely overhauled. In the previous game, you could equip various spirits to provide you with passive bonuses, as well as a minor damage boost after you filled up a charge gauge during combat. In Nioh 2, the passive bonuses remain much the same, but instead of a damage boost, you get to unleash super cool demon powers instead. Now, there are 2 big changes here. The first is that while fighting monsters, in addition to dropping money and items, they may occasionally drop soul cores as well. These souls can then be collected and equipped onto your character. While those souls are equipped, you can use energy to either summon those demons to the battlefield or use that monster's special attack for yourself. The second, and more exciting alteration, is the addition of a full-on Daemon Mode. In Nioh 2, filling up your charge gauge doesn't just give you a small damage boost. This time around, it actually allows you to transform into a full-fledged demon instead, complete with special powers and a new moveset. Daemon Mode can also be used during combat to counter or deflect enemy death blows, allowing you to stand toe-to-toe with more powerful bosses. However, this new system isn't entirely in your favor. Certain areas and even certain enemies can pull you into the Dark Realm, the living land of the yokai, where demon powers are stronger but where your stamina regeneration is reduced. Bosses, in particular, are capable of activating the Dark Realm multiple times, forcing you to stay on your toes throughout the entire battle. The game's multiplayer has also been tweaked as well. In addition to online modes, you can now summon NPC allies or enemies even when you're playing single player. This allows you to either decrease or increase the difficulty of the level as you see fit. Now, the good parts of Nioh 2 are pretty condensed. Like the previous game, the combat system is still fantastic. It's a precise, fast-paced system requiring judicious use of dodging and countering, but with a stance system that allows you to change your combat strategy on the fly. More weapons and armor sets mean that you have more tactical options available to you, and the addition of demon powers gives you special abilities that can turn the tide of battle in your favor. Demon form, in particular, is an inclusion that I appreciated, since it basically acts as a get-out-of-jail-free card. A powerful, if temporary, transformation that can allow you to deal out serious damage to your opponents. And speaking of enemies, Nioh 2 has that covered as well. While most of the regular monsters will be familiar if you played the previous game, this entry includes a whole host of new bosses for you to fight, each one representing an over-the-top set-piece battle unto itself. Now, unfortunately, the downsides of the experience are a little more spread out. For starters, the plot of Nioh 2 is somewhat lackluster. The premise is much the same as before. Armies of demons are rampaging across feudal Japan, but it's your character's motivation, or lack thereof, that's so irritating. You see, at the start of the game, your custom-created protagonist teams up with a rogue named Tokichiro to seek fame and fortune, at which point you spend almost the entire rest of the game tagging along as his beautiful assistant. Sure, you're the one fighting all the battles and slaying all the bosses, but he's the one who makes the decisions and gets all the character development. And I gotta say, it is really frustrating to play any game, especially an action game, where you are basically somebody else's sidekick. I can't count the number of times where a cinematic will happen and an NPC will be talking to your player-generated character, and at the end of the conversation, you'll just grunt and stare off into the middle distance. It also doesn't help that the ending of the game is just a massive cliffhanger for the sequel. Another problem is that the new demon form system has some inequities to it. Essentially, there are 3 different demon forms that you can transform into, and which spirit you pick at the start of the game determines which one you'll be able to unlock. This is important because certain demon forms are better suited for certain situations and bosses, and which one you pick can drastically increase or decrease the difficulty of the game. Thankfully, this is only a temporary problem, although it does take around 5 to 6 hours to collect enough spirits that you can finally unlock all the demon forms yourself. But probably my biggest complaint would be the game's incredibly uneven presentation. On a technical level, the game looks great. All of the character models look good, all the weapons and armor are fantastically detailed, all of the enemies have great designs and really good animations, and even playing on a console, the frame rate was smooth and I noticed very little texture pop-in. However, Nioh 2 has just some of the ugliest levels compared to its contemporaries. I mean, we are talking a shocking preponderance of brown Japanese villages, gray caves, and black mountains. Even areas that should be geographically interesting are for some reason either washed out or rendered with a completely homogeneous color palette. I have right here a perfect example of what I'm talking about, a level which should be conceptually interesting. It's a seaside village surrounded by palm trees and basalt pillars, and yet, for whatever reason, they have rendered the entire area in uniform brown. I mean, look at this. It is tan buildings next to bark-colored trees with rust-colored grass growing out of dirt and gravel, while black and white enemies patrol in the background behind gray rocks, all in front of a dirty brown ocean. A dirty brown ocean. What in the world were they thinking? And this is not to say that there aren't some good-looking levels in the game. There are, but they are few and far between. And other times, I noticed that they actually had to cheat to pull it off. Like, I'm wandering around thinking to myself, oh, this is a nice level. Oh, it's kind of a Japanese bathhouse. And wait a minute, this is just a level from the first game. I mean, yeah, I'm grateful for the variety, but I'm not grateful for the copy-paste shortcut you pulled here. Still, in the end, most of the problems I had with Nioh 2 were minor. My complaints about story pacing and level design might not even bother you. As mentioned before, the core of the game, the action combat system, is still really good, and the addition of demon powers gives you a lot more power and flexibility at your disposal, which allows the enemies to respond in kind and up the challenge. I would give Nioh 2 3 out of 4 stars, and my recommendation. If you're a fan of the original Nioh, or a fan of Souls-like action games, then yeah, this is definitely a solid choice. It might not be a perfect game, but it does deliver in all the ways that matter. Alright, well, thanks again for listening. Till next time, keep your spirit strong and your sword sharp. I'll see you then. In between combat, I like to come back here and relax in the tea house, enjoy some fine art and high culture. That's a nice piece there. I think that if you take the time to examine it, you'll really notice the excellent craftsmanship and not exactly the reaction I was expecting. Well, in that case, I have another piece if you'd like to examine it, and I see, didn't really take much time on that one. Well, I have many other vessels that if you'd like to... Okay. Alright, just slow down. Maybe a little bit. I really like this one. Oh, stop breaking my tea vessels, old man!